Have you ever wondered why when you're not in your own house, it's hard to sleep? Or do number two. It's the same thing as why every time you enter a church, you lower your voice. Or when you go to your office, you feel tired. Well, let's talk about it. There's this concept I learned in architecture school called the spirit of place, or genius loci. It's basically tackling the idea that each place has its own spirit, or meaning for each individual. Not an actual ghost, okay? But the theory is the spirit of place is the reason why when you go to certain places, you feel and or act a certain way. Well, back then, we're talking about it in terms of architecture, how the space or building affects people's actions, and how one can formulate that feeling if they're designing a similar kind of structure. Stay with me here, I promise this will get interesting. You know how churches tend to have high ceilings? Yes, because it needs to host a lot of people at the same time and it needs to feel and be actually spacious, but that's also to make you feel small and embrace the fact that you're in a place that belongs to a being bigger than you. So when you're in a church, you actually speak more softly, act more timid, and just, feel the presence of a higher being. Let's go outside. So yeah, spirit of place is actually present all around us, more than we actually know. And it's even more present in places you actually interact with on a daily basis. Let me show you an example. Compare this place to this. Though these two places might look different, if you think about it, their functions are quite similar. There are places designed for you to eat. You can buy food and drinks by ordering at the front, and if you wish to eat it there's a place where you can sit down and have your meal.
Though I think we can all agree that the feeling in a cafe and in a fast food is very much different. For starters,
In a cafe, it's more chill. It's more laid back. From the moment you walk in, the interior feels homey. You have windows that let in natural light. The chairs are also soft and comfy. There's good ambient noise. Plus, that smell of coffee is just amazing. All of these combined makes you want to stay for a longer period of time, even if you're done eating or drinking your drink. But compare that to a fast food place. Even though some are smaller than cafes, they still tend to cater to more people because they try to maximize it as much as possible. Just for comparison, notice the chairs. They're not super comfy and they're not designed for you to stay for a long period of time. And if you still don't believe me, just look at the staff. In a cafe, it's generally more chill, from the way they move to the way they handle your drink. Plus, if you notice, they even engage in casual small talk, even if there's people on the line. Subscribe, guys.
Bye-bye po.
I don't know, I feel like they're generally just more happy because they don't have that constant pressure of doing things as fast as possible. Of course, they're gonna do it as fast as they can, but there's not that outside pressure that they have to do it as fast as possible, if that makes sense. But in a fast food, it's literally called a fast food, so everyone's doing things as fast as possible.
and to me, the customer, the fast-paced nature kind of carries over. I feel like I want to leave right after I finish eating, but I guess that's part of the point.
Also, the spirit of place will vary per individual. While of course, if you and another person have similar circumstances about a certain place, you might have the same feeling towards that place. But if you don't have that similarity, it's most likely gonna vary. Plus, normally spirit of place is tied with everything in that certain place. Like for a cafe example earlier. Imagine that exact place with the exact same ambience, smell, and sound, but with different chairs. It'll feel way different, even if you just change one detail. Of course, again, it varies per person, but common examples are how you feel energized when you're in a mall, but when you're in your office, it's so easy to feel sleepy. Or when you're in a public place, you feel a bit flustered, but when you're in your community or near your house, you feel secured. But I know what you're thinking. What's the point of all of this? Like, does this even matter? See, spirit of place is actually pretty useful. If you know you can do things better at certain places, you can capitalize on that. If you find that you're more productive by working in a certain cafe, continue doing that. And vice versa. If something isn't working, try changing where you do that work if you can.
I've actually had this problem before when I was doing my undergrad thesis. That was during the global shutdown, which meant I was literally stuck at home.
I'm a person who prefers working outside. I like the ambient noise and I'm generally more productive that way. But during this time, I didn't really have a choice.
I had no choice but to be productive here. in a space where I unwind and rest. I think that was quite common for people who transitioned into working from home. It's kind of hard to pivot your house into a workplace because quite frankly, it's not meant to do that.
The spaces in the house are designed for different uses, and if you plan to do work in your house, trust me, having a dedicated workspace outside your room is very, very helpful. But of course, we don't always have the luxury to have an entire room just for that. See, in my case, during that time, this was where I used to work. The bed was a bit smaller then, so I do fit if you're wondering, but the issue is, it was very close to my bed. So more often than not, I just ended up resting, not really being productive. But now I work on the other side of the room. With this, I actually got to divide my room into a resting area and a work area. And even if that's just a small change, it's actually pretty helpful because I just stay on this side of the room when I want to work and I stay on that side of the room when I'm ready to rest. And as much as possible, even nowadays, I try not to go to that side unless I'm feeling sleepy. In that way, I feel like it preserves my bed into an area where I just sleep. I never work in that area. I just work on this area. I also try as much as possible not to use my phone as much there. So that side is really just for resting, for sleep. And with that change, I actually noticed that I fall asleep quite quicker and I don't toss and turn as much. Interestingly, the spirit of place concept was also lightly touched by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. It's the part where he said that if you're struggling to build habits for the long term, it's important to try changing your environment. Even though I know that he didn't really tackle the spirit of place in general, but the concept is actually quite similar to what we're talking about. I know that the primary use of this room is for resting. It was designed that way. So I had to change something if I want to be productive here as well. And since I'm constrained to be productive inside these four walls and I can't really go out because it was the lockdown era, I had to make an environment change within this room. The spirit of place is a very interesting idea and we probably just scratched the surface of it. Because in theory, it's something that is found in both tangible and intangible things in a certain place. When something or some place makes you feel a certain way, that's it. So going back to the title of this video, why is it hard to sleep in other people's houses? Well, I think you can answer that on your own. And that's it. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you again soon. Bye!